Thank you very much. So, Mr. Planner, on to you.
Well, great. Thank you. Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Francisque. And good to see you, Mike Cobb.
Good to see you, sir.
Love that background.
Yeah, I hope you do. It's on a fabulous issue of a sports car, which I believe Racer Marketing and Media might have a small hand in.
Yeah, I think that there's a certain magazine pilot named Philip Royal and an artistic genius named Paul Leggett that might have concocted that cover behind you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I love that cover. I'm one of the people who used to illustrate the covers on sports cars, so I appreciate that. Thank you for joining us today, Mike.
You bet.
And thank you for taking care of our club so wonderfully through a really deep crisis in the world. I love our club very much. I've been a member, and I joined in 1973, I think, was when I first joined, and it literally changed my life. I like to say the club raised me.
Understand.
And I think I'm not alone. And when we got together last year, you had a myriad of challenges that were facing you and this organization that was founded in 1944 out of pure passion and enthusiasm for people who love cars. Looking back, you've just been through a moment that could have taken down this club. Tell us what you learned, and tell us where where you've come from from the darkness of.
Well, thank you for that. I tell you, if I had $1 for every time my dad told me prior proper planning prevents poor performance, there was another P word in there, but since I'm
Yes.
TV vis-a-vis the web, I'll leave that one out. But I think you get the joke, right? So
Yeah.
I can tell you this, as much as I subscribe to that, thank you, Dad. There's no way you can plan for a global pandemic, really, right?
Right.
So I have to say, hats off to a very small, lean, agile, small but fierce staff team, who basically we circled the wagons and we said we're not giving up. We're not letting this thing go down on our watch. Number one. Number two, I have a board that is fabulously supportive across the dark days that were last year. We pretty much had daily calls, weekly calls, whatever we needed kind of calls with the board, and they offered me whatever support we needed as a team to get through it. And then the biggest shout out goes to the members.
Yeah.
Because and the leaders across our 115 regions, because they had a choice to stay in or opt out.
Yeah.
And they stayed in. In fact, Paul, I'm happy to report today, our membership rolls have never been higher in recent history in this organization. And a lot of that has to do with, I think, you've asked me before, what's the DNA of this club? And I think that it's really around those who have a shared passion for motorsports, right? And those who have, like yourself, like myself, like many of us in the club, who have a legacy of experiences, memories etched in our soul, right? That came from being around motorsports, being around the SCCA as we were growing up. Those were the things that led to our pursuits. It's led to where you are today. It's led me to where I am today, and many of us in the club. And when you tap that pulse, when you tap that core DNA that's resident in many grassroots enthusiasts who were going through hell with us last year, they just said, no, I'm standing with the club. And I can just say that nothing but a heartfelt thank you to each and every one of them for doing that. And we're bouncing back pretty strong. We've never seen subscription at the national championship level. Was absolutely outstanding this year.
Yeah.
Some of that, I'd love to take all the credit as a club. I think some of that's due to folks just saying, I want to live again. I want freedom again. I want to get out and enjoy my.
I totally get that. I totally get it.
And I absolutely respect that. Our job, I think, is when they do vote with their money to go out and experience that and to release that passion, that we provide them the best access and the best experience we can in grassroots motorsports. And that's really what we're committed to doing going forward.
Well, and you do, and I think that you touched on something that I opened the door to a pretty important part of the conversation, is that this is a group driven by pure passion and commitment to do things that we all love, and people give their time in this club to make events happen, to coach others, to nurture others. That's literally how I got here. People took time for me to help me become, one, an adult, sort of. I'm not completely there in adulthood yet, but
I understand. I'm there with you.
but also just they watched out for me. I mean, literally, that's what I find in our club. And I think what was fantastic was to see this vibrancy this year across the board. You've just described it, but the most important thing is this: overall, there's a climate right now in motorsport where it's surging.
Yes.
You're well positioned right now to benefit from that. At the pinnacle of the sport, there's expanded interest. Earlier today, I made a comment during the conversation with Mark Miles that we've passed 10 million unique visitors this year. That's a stunning number for us.
Huge.
And that's 4 million. By the end of it, it'll be 4 million more than the year before, which was 2 million more than the year before.
Right.
So that over a 2-year period is a 6 million user growth, and those people are people that are now turbocharged with interest in motorsports. So what does the SCCA do now to harness that energy that's in the atmosphere? You're here. If you want to be involved in motorsport directly, you're the door in. What do you do?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think what we're really focused on right now is really trying to make sure that we provide as much access as possible, and through that access, the best experience possible. So when you think about the club, obviously we're involved in road racing. That's kind of the backbone of the club. We're involved in solo or autocross. Pick your preferred lexicon there.
Yeah.
Our time trials program has seen a huge resurgence in the last 12, 18 months. Track night has gone from 0 in 4 or 5 years ago in terms of participations to over 50,000 participations. And that gets a lot of folks who aren't, I guess maybe if I could say it this way, who aren't maybe the prototypical SCCA prospect.
Yes.
It gets the atypical, hey, I'm just an enthusiast. I just have I have a Mazda Miata. I just would love to get on the track. I'm not a race car driver. I don't have a comp license. I'm not a mechanic. The technical conversation that was going on before my session here, I was just blown away. I understood about every fifth word they were saying, but it's just like, when I grow up, I want to have the passion of Lake Speed Junior, I think. I just learned that from the last seminar. But
indeed, I do too.
Providing access through a lens that is more broad, that allows Grassroots Motorsports folks to come play with the car they have currently. You don't have to go buy the car that's going to win the class. Bring the car you have currently. You don't have to have a comp license to run in Track Night in America. You don't even have to be an SCCA member. We'll get you in a weekend membership so you can come, as long as your car is wider than it is tall, then you can come drive your car at Track Night. I've got a picture of a Honda Ridgeline on track at VIR with several other traditional sports cars. And I asked the team before I came on today, I said, is it okay if I mention this? Because I don't want to promote something that isn't safe and up to SCCA specs. And they said, no, that's absolutely safe. As long as that car is wider than it is tall, that gentleman was driving it in a safe manner. And that's how he's accessing his passion at that point in time through the vehicle that he has. I think that's how we create a broader tribe of enthusiasts.
Yeah.
Is we open the gate of access. So, and access, when I say access, I mean it very broadly in terms of financial access, gender access, age access. I mean, our job is to create the best grassroots experience we can for enthusiasts, and let them tell us how we did, right? For example, we use kind of a poor man's version of a net promoter score, which I'm sure everybody is familiar with.
Yeah.
Basically at the end of every, for example, every Track Night in America event that we do, We ask them on a 1 to 5 scale, can you rate your experience with us today with track night on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being worst, 5 being best? And can you tell us, based on this experience today, how likely you are to refer to a friend or family member, to come out and join us for a track night in the future? I want to be humble with this, but right now, across calendar year 21, that score for Track Night in America is 95.
Wow.
I mean, we're doing a few things right. And in terms of providing access, to me, that's how you grow the tribe across the continuum, is you provide products like Track Night in America that have broader access. You don't mandate that you have to have this car or this experience or this or that. You just ask them to be appropriate and lean into SCCA overall operations and safety standards, because that's paramount. Right. That's job one, right?
Absolutely, job one. Yeah.
That you respect everybody in pit, and treat them. It's pretty simple stuff, Paul. If we just practice this as a world, I think we'd be a hell of a lot further down the road. Just treat people the way you want to be treated, right?
I agree with you.
And if you don't treat people that way, we might ask you to leave.
That's right. And I think that's the other thing. I mean, reputationally, you hear people complain about clubs and club behaviors, and I personally have encountered very little of that in the SCCA over my 49-year journey here. What I have found is that people see you, and if you're wandering around for too long, they give you something to do.
Right.
Yes. Right. So I was recently telling the story of showing up, and next thing I know, I'm working poorly in timing and scoring. Eventually, I'm hanging out in the question box. I'm doing little things, being asked to help, and out of the being asked to help or asking to help, which is the other part of it, I'm meeting all these people that know so much, that begin to be my tour guide in this exotic world that I want to be part of. I really do. And we start to find common threads. Many of these relationships now are decades-long relationships, and it's not just drivers or people who own race cars or teams. It's workers. And when I began worker population event volunteers, we're very much commingled with competitors. We all knew, it's a small enough group, we all knew each other because we were all there at this racetrack together, especially a place like Holtville, California, where you're out in an abandoned airfield and you're going to have dinner with each other.
Right.
And I think what's interesting is you're managing an organization that's actually a culture.
Yes. Yes, no, that's hugely important. And it is important that culture not be clubby, right? That culture be open. We have something that Chris Robbins, our director of region development, helped us with. Is kind of a statement around providing a welcoming environment, and it's pretty simple. But I get that. It's hard to marry something that in its core DNA is highly competitive. Yeah. But at the same time, you're asking that same culture that has that DNA to be open and welcome for recreational participants just as much as competitive participants. But I tell you, Paul, I think that's a key to success for us going forward. Yeah. And I'll just use myself as a poor example. I am a mid-pack hack. When it comes to driving, in my mind, I'm legendary. In reality, not so much. I can typically place mid-pack in most of the classes when I drive in solo events. Road racing, I'd love to be mid-pack. Usually I'm a little further back than mid-pack in road racing, but that's not the point. Yeah. The point is, that's how I access my passion in motorsports. And on the days where I know I'm not qualified to drive, like say the SCCA National Championship runoffs at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, because I don't want to get in trouble with the captain and I don't want to embarrass the club, I'll choose to work F&C. Yeah. Why is that? Number one, if I can't be driving in Apex, I want to work in Apex. And the closest
it's pretty spectacular, isn't it?
The closest I can get to an Apex is with my F&C crew in the SCCA. And, I have my F&C license. They let me do it. And
Yeah.
it's just another way to be involved. And it's just, I go back to the access and the experience words. Those are my two buzzwords.
Mm-hmm.
That's the access that grants me. It's like VIP access,
Right.
to an event, to stand in a corner, to be that close to the activity and the action of folks who are that high in caliber of proficiency as drivers. And it just helps their experience on track. It helps the overall club experience, right? As you said, if you stand around long enough in the SCCA, you'll get volunteered for something.
Yes, you will.
I love trying to help, and
Yeah.
and that's the way I help. But I think that is kind of that's how the culture is built. That's really the DNA of the culture, and I think that is still even in 2021. I think that's still appealing. How we execute against that is different, but I still think it's very appealing.
Yeah.
I was so blessed this year in our championship season to see, let's just go to the runoffs for the second. We had 14-year-olds on the podium.
Yeah,
and
you
we
did.
had a gentleman with more championships than you can shake a stick at, John Heinrichs, who's, forgive me, I think in his early 70s, right?
A very fast early 70s.
Very much faster than I'll ever be at any age.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Uh-huh.
And so what does that mean? Well, to me, what that means is we might be doing some of the things right,
Yeah.
because the breadth of that, just demographically, was just mind blowing. We also had at the runoffs this year, I don't know if this was the very first, but I believe it to be the very first female hand control assisted driver who did a damn fine job in B-Spec, one of the largest B-Spec fields
saw that too.
we've had in recent history. And so, I know those are really kind of small, maybe tactical examples, but to me, when you're talking access, those are the kind of things that I think, or those are the kind of outcomes that I think we're trying to drive for, because that provides a broader, just a broader access point, a broader funnel for us as a club. And it benefits us as a club because we get a much broader set of perspectives from which to build upon going forward.
Agreed. And I think, again, the diversity of activity and membership and just interest in the Sports Car Club of America is mind-boggling. I like to say going to a national convention for me is like going to my high school reunion, though, because the people that have been with me on most of my life journey, many of them are a huge proportion of them are from our club, and
right.
And we've gotten to stay in high school all the way through the last 4 decades doing fun things together. But the thing I think that would really be kind of fun to go through for people who don't know what the SCCA is, let's talk about SCCA by the numbers for a minute.
Sure.
How many members do we have in the SCCA?
Well, we have at this point, I checked with Amy Amy Tennis, our manager of member services, senior manager, who does a fabulous job for us. I checked with her before I came in today. We're right at 50,000 full-time. Mm-hmm. And we have about between 20 and 25,000, I don't want to call them part-time, but weekend members who participate with us in multiple solo events, track night events, other kinds of events. And our goal, obviously, with that population is to try to, migrate them into full-time status as we continue to grow. But pretty healthy numbers.
Yeah, absolutely healthy numbers, and very nice to see that past the 5.0. That makes me happy because we produce your magazine 6 times a year, and the SCCA yearbook issue, which is just coming out here, is one of the benefits of being a member.
Sorry for the shameless plug. I had it right here.
Okay, great. I don't physically have one yet. All I've seen is the digital example of it. But
it's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing it. It makes me happy to see it. And that's an idea we concocted last year mid-pandemic in our conversations with you.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a good one. And let's talk about some more numbers here. How many events do you run a year?
Right now, it's around 2,500 events and over 3,500 event days, right? So, for example, Mike, what are event days? Well, for Solo Nationals, which is one of the largest amateur motorsports in the world, not just North America, we had over 1,500 participants across 7 days on 100 acres of concrete in Lincoln, Nebraska, dodging orange cones. And that might sound frivolous to somebody who's never done it, but I can tell you this, There are some frivolous activities up there, especially in the paddock area after hours.
Yes, it is.
But when it's game time, there's not a whole lot of frivolity there. There are national championship caliber folks there. A great example, Tom O'Gorman came down this year in Super Street with 100% stock Acura NSX, other than I think it's 100% stock except for maybe Yokohama tires on it. And in a hugely competitive, fierce class, ended up top of the podium.
Yeah, well, he's a special talent, and
He
and
is a
again,
special talent.
and he's a special talent at having fun as well,
Yes, he is.
which is I think is sort of the poster child for what you do too. And
Yeah.
you talked about the other side of the solo nationals, and the other side of the solo nationals. If you've not been, it's one hell of a cool party.
Absolutely.
And,
But I think the joke risk management probably doesn't like me saying this on air, but it's basically a week-long party where there's 6 minutes of racing.
yes, that's exactly it. And all your friends are there, and you can make up stories about how great you are.
Absolutely. When you say friends, I mean, for example, there was one family that was there that basically built a deconstructed A-mod, which is the pinnacle of competition in solo, on site, from parts to getting it running and on course, with the help of friends, family, fellow competitors at Solo Nats. And that's back, kind of ties back into your cultural reference where you said, well, what's the culture of the SCCA? That's typically the culture of the SCCA. It's folks who are willing to help you into the wee hours of the morning, even if they're you're competing with them in your class, right? In the same class. You see that in the runoffs. You see it at any of our road races. You see it across the club. And I think that camaraderie is really part of building the cohesiveness of the family.
And I think here we'll talk about that for a second, because you have the road racing program. You do have a cohesiveness and kind of spirit of the club, but your program, your road racing program is the envy of, I think, the world. Basically, as an amateur program, the runoffs has been running, I think, since, was it 1964 would be the first time that the runoffs happened?
Right.
Yes. And have been to many of them. How many national championship events do you think or SCCA regionals and majors events do you run annually?
Oh, I don't even know the number off the top of my head. I know it's in the dozens. When you think about the majors, the number of majors we do across the country every annum, the number of Hoosier Super Tours, and the number of divisional events. I should have the number top of my head, but it is quite a few. And that number is actually growing. And one of the cool things that's kind of going on with a lot of our regional events, Paul, again, kind of back to the access and the experience pieces, we're working hard at trying to invite other participants into those road racing venues through on track events, track day events, time trial events integrated into a road racing calendar weekend, et cetera. All of those kinds of things. And one of the things that is probably one of the best examples that we did in 21, we actually partnered with the Steel City region, and across 3 days, a 3-day weekend, they had almost 500 drivers participating in 8 SCCA events across 5 different programs: solo, track night in America, road racing, time trials, a competition school, and a road rally. I mean, it was basically an SCCA smorgasbord that they did at Pit Race, as you know, which is a beautiful facility up there, and supported all of them. They did them all on site. But
SCCA Palooza.
There you go. And the cool thing was, not only was it a great thing for participants, many of which who weren't full-time SCCA members at that point in time, because they could see, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Yeah, you can do all of that. It was also candidly a great thing for internal stakeholders, because sometimes we get blind to all the assets we actually have in our portfolio to deliver on that experience. And, probably going to talk out of school a little bit here. I'm not so sure there was comfort right out of the gate with, maybe the road racing crew having the time trialers there, having the track nighters there, having the solo folks there. at the start, but I'll tell you this, here's the tail of the tape. As soon as it was done, they signed up for doing it again in 2022.
Absolutely great news, because I think that's the secret sauce to your future, honestly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to two words for me, access and experience. My team is so tired of hearing those words from me, but I think that's the key to success for us going forward, is focusing on that. And I know we have a lot of folks who are what I call pointy end of the sword in solo road racing time trials. We have some fabulously fast folks who race with us. So we're not backing off the SCCA being an epicenter of high caliber competition. We're not backing off that a bit. What we are doing is saying we're going to do that, and let's just take a couple of steps back and expand that circle so that we can get those recreational folks in here, because those folks might just be future competitors.
Exactly. And tell us a little bit about this new program that we're rolling out here in 2022,
the Enduro program?
Yeah, the Enduro program, which has my attention.
Yes, I think it has a lot of folks' attention. Speaking of, you were talking to Philip Royal, our sports car magazine editor. I know he has a passion for Enduro. I'd like to sneak him out there to that one.
I think he's a ringer, though. He's a very fast racing driver, in addition to being a really excellent magazine editor.
There you go. That's awesome. Well, it's taking place at a facility you probably know a little bit about. It's kind of the home of endurance racing, which is Sebring.
Yes.
And Eric Prill and his team are leading that charge. And again, I think this is something that we're going to steal a page a little bit out of our reinvigoration of the time trials program in the SCCA, where we actually kind of launched that program with a national championship and then built a tour to support it afterwards, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually how we're looking at launching Enduro as well. The Enduro event is in Sebring in March, and then we're working with regions across the country to create probably a 4 to 6 event tour in 22, and then based on that experience, based on learning from that, we'll potentially consider expanding that as we roll into 23. But as you know well, there's a lot of different ways to enjoy on-track racing, wheel-to-wheel racing. And, over the past several years, we've seen a lot of folks expand into the endurance market. We have a ton of sprint racers, obviously, inside the SCCA who dabble inside the endurance market. And selfishly, we're kind of competitive too. We don't want to yield that market to other folks.
Of course
we
not.
want those folks to stay home and play with us, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to do that. I don't have my invitation for that event yet as a driver. I'm just, while I've got full command of the industry here, I just want to say a bronze level driver in Topeka, Kansas, available for hire cheap. Not real good, but
if anybody's looking for ballast that holds a steering wheel, I'm ready to go.
If you're looking for some dead weight, give me a call. I can help out.
So, I'm down. I want to be there for that one.
The concept for EPARTRADE is basically, in my opinion, there's a big hole in the internet. So the internet started many years ago, but there's never been an online business community for racers on the World Wide Web. The need for EPARTRADE is actually quite obvious. Basically, people in the business of auto racing need a place online to hang out and get their problems solved.
It's extremely simple for a buyer or for a supplier to interact on the platform. The first thing you need to do is sign in, which is free. And the second thing is, when you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information. If it's a company, you click on request more information, and then from there, it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
You can go to epartrade.com, you become part of a community of businesses in racing, and it makes sourcing products much easier than just on the internet or using Google.
At EPARTRADE, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier through an email.
More than that, it's a place to go just to keep current every day. So it's a good place to start your workday in your racing business or in your offices of your professional race team. And you're current when it comes to new technology industry news, technical papers, technical videos, all of that and more. We're not looking for a million hits per day. All we want is people who are really the volume buyers of racing products in the racing industry to be part of the little world of EPARTRADE. We have racing businesses participating from around the world. So you get suppliers from around the world, you get buyers from around the world.
EPARTRADE really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
There are two types of people, racers and everyone else. Racer Magazine is for those who believe that racing is a way of life. Racer embodies the excellence that defines a sport driven by passion, courage, and ingenuity. Get 1 year of both Racer's print and digital edition for only $39 with instant access to our entire digital issue archive. Subscribe now at info.racer.com.